5 tiny habits that changed my life. Lesson 1. Keep promises to yourself. For years, I thought confidence was something people were born with. Whenever I met someone who spoke with certainty or stayed disciplined every day, I assumed they were simply different from me. I was wrong. One day I realized something. The biggest reason I lacked confidence wasn't because I wasn't talented. It was because I couldn't trust myself. Every Sunday night, I'd make promises. I'll wake up early. I'll work out. I'll read. I'll stop wasting time. But a few days later, I'd break those promises. The more promises I broke, the less I believed in myself. Then I made one simple decision. I stopped making big promises. Instead, I made promises so small they were impossible to avoid. Read for 10 minutes. Take a short walk after dinner. Drink 1 extra glass of water. Write 1 paragraph. Whenever I completed one of those promises, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Pride. Not because the task was difficult, but because I proved to myself that my words meant something. Looking back, confidence didn't come from success. Confidence came from keeping promises to myself. And every promise I kept became another brick in the foundation of the person I wanted to become. Lesson 2. Improve just 1%. There was a time when I believed my life needed a complete reset. I wasn't unhappy because I lacked dreams. In fact, I had too many. I wanted a stronger body. I wanted to speak English with confidence. I wanted a better career. I wanted to save more money. I wanted to wake up early every morning. I wanted to read more books. I wanted to become disciplined. Every time I watched successful people online, I told myself, one day, that'll be me. But deep inside, I wondered why that day never seemed to arrive. Every Monday felt like a new beginning. I'd buy a notebook, write down ambitious goals, create the perfect schedule, wake up excited. For the first few days, I felt unstoppable. I exercised. I studied. I ate healthier. I crossed tasks off my list with satisfaction. Then reality slowly appeared. One busy day turned into 2. I came home exhausted. I skipped 1 workout. I stayed up late watching videos because I told myself I deserved a break. The next morning I overslept. Instead of reading, I scrolled through my phone. Instead of studying, I said, I'll catch up tomorrow. Tomorrow became next week. Before long, I looked at my notebook again. Most of the pages were still empty. The goals were beautiful. The execution was missing. At first, I blamed everything around me. Maybe I didn't have enough time. Maybe I needed better equipment. Maybe I needed more money. Maybe I just wasn't disciplined enough. But one evening, after another day of making excuses, I sat quietly and asked myself a different question. What if the problem isn't my dream? What if the problem is the way I'm trying to reach it? That question stayed with me. For the first time, I stopped trying to change my entire life in 1 week. Instead, I focused on changing one tiny thing. Just one. The next morning, I didn't promise myself an hour of exercise. I promised myself 5 minutes. Not because 5 minutes was enough to transform my body, but because 5 minutes was enough to remove every excuse. Even on a busy day, I could find 5 minutes. Even on a difficult day, I could find 5 minutes. Even on a day when I didn't feel motivated, I could still show up. That small decision changed more than I expected. The following week, I made another tiny improvement. I drank 1 extra glass of water each day. Nothing dramatic happened. I didn't suddenly become healthier, but I noticed something important. Keeping one small promise made it easier to keep another. The week after that, I started sleeping 30 minutes earlier, not 3 hours earlier, not a complete lifestyle makeover, just 30 minutes. Some nights I succeeded. Some nights I didn't. Instead of criticizing myself, I simply tried again the next day. Little by little, those tiny changes became normal. Then I added another improvement. 5 extra minutes of English practice. I wasn't trying to become fluent overnight. I simply wanted to know a few more words than I knew yesterday. Some days I learned new vocabulary. Other days I practiced speaking out loud. Sometimes I made mistakes. Many mistakes. But every mistake taught me something. I stopped seeing mistakes as proof that I couldn't improve. I started seeing them as evidence that I was trying. That changed everything. As the weeks passed, I noticed another small habit forming. Smiled more. That might sound too simple, but smiling changed the way I interacted with people. People smiled back. Conversations became easier. Work became a little lighter. I realized that sometimes the smallest habits don't just change your actions. They change the atmosphere around you. Another habit was learning to listen. Before, I often listened just long enough to reply. Now I listened to understand. Instead of interrupting, I became curious. People opened up more. I learned more. Relationships improved. Again, it wasn't one huge decision. It was another 1% improvement. At first, these tiny changes felt almost invisible. If someone had looked at my life after 1 week, they probably wouldn't have noticed anything different. My body looked the same. My bank account looked the same. My career looked the same. That's where many people quit. They expect immediate results. When those results don't appear, they assume nothing is happening. But some of the most important changes happen where you can't see them. Like a seed growing underground before it breaks through the soil. Progress is often invisible before it becomes obvious. That thought encouraged me to keep going. I stopped chasing dramatic transformations. I became interested in consistency. I stopped asking, "How much can I accomplish today?" Instead, I asked, "Can I become 1% better today?" 1% sounded small, almost insignificant. But that's exactly why it worked. Small improvements didn't overwhelm me. They didn't make me anxious. They didn't require perfect conditions. They simply required showing up. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. The tiny improvements quietly stacked on top of one another. Then one day, something surprising happened. Or friend said, "You seem more confident lately." Another person asked, "Have you been working out?" Someone else noticed my English had improved. Those compliments didn't happen because I changed overnight. They happened because I had changed slowly for so long that other people finally began to notice. The greatest surprise wasn't that other people noticed. It was that I noticed. I no longer argued with myself every morning. Healthy choices became easier. Learning became part of my routine. Discipline no longer felt like punishment. It felt like part of who I was becoming. Looking back, I realize I spent years searching for a breakthrough. I imagined success would arrive with one life-changing decision. Instead, it arrived through hundreds of ordinary decisions. One healthier meal. One extra page. One earlier bedtime. One short workout. One difficult conversation. One small improvement repeated again and again. If you're waiting for your life to change overnight, you may spend years waiting. But if you decide to improve by just a little today, and a little tomorrow, and a little the day after that, something remarkable begins to happen. The person you become 6 months from now won't be created by one extraordinary moment. They'll be created by countless ordinary moments that most people overlook. So don't underestimate small progress. Don't dismiss tiny victories. Celebrate them. Protect them. Repeat them. Because the distance between where you are today and where you want to be is often crossed one small step at a time. Tonight, before you go to sleep, don't ask yourself how to become a completely different person. Ask yourself one simple question. What is one small thing I can do a little better tomorrow? Then wake up. Do that one thing. Repeat it. Trust the process. One day you'll look back and realize that the life you once dreamed about wasn't built by giant leaps. It was built by hundreds of tiny improvements that quietly transformed you into the person you hoped to become. Part 3. The quiet power of never giving up. The more I reflected on those months, the more I realized that the greatest transformation hadn't happened in my body, my bank account, or even my career. It had happened in my mind. Years earlier, I believed change was something dramatic. I imagined that one day I would wake up feeling completely different. I thought discipline would suddenly appear. I thought confidence would arrive after one big achievement. I thought success belonged to people who had something I didn't. But I had been looking at change the wrong way. Real change is usually quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't arrive with fireworks. It grows slowly, almost invisibly, while you're busy doing ordinary things. One ordinary morning. One ordinary workout. One ordinary page read before bed. One ordinary conversation where you choose patience instead of anger. One ordinary decision to keep going even when no one is watching. Those ordinary moments become extraordinary only after enough time has passed. Looking back, I realized I had underestimated the power of consistency. I used to believe consistency meant doing everything perfectly. Now I understood that consistency meant returning after interruptions. Life never became easier. There were still stressful weeks. There were mornings when I didn't want to get out of bed. There were evenings when all I wanted was to forget my goals and do nothing. The difference was that I stopped believing one bad day erased all the good days before it. One missed workout didn't make me lazy. One unhealthy meal didn't ruin my health. One mistake didn't erase my progress. Instead of quitting, I learned to begin again. Again and again. That simple habit of restarting became one of the greatest skills I ever developed. Because life is full of interruptions. Plans change. Unexpected problems appear. People disappoint us. We disappoint ourselves. The question isn't whether you'll be knocked off course. The question is how quickly you'll return. Every return makes you stronger. Every restart teaches resilience. Every small step forward proves that progress is still possible. As the months continued, I noticed something unexpected. The habits that once required effort became automatic. I no longer argued with myself about reading. I simply opened the book. I no longer debated whether to exercise. I just started moving. I no longer searched for the perfect time. I used the time I already had. That freed my mind. Instead of spending energy making decisions, I spent energy taking action. Looking back, I smiled at the person I used to be. The person who thought success required giant leaps. The person who believed motivation was the answer. The person who waited for the perfect moment. I don't judge that version of myself anymore. I understand him. He wanted a better life. He simply didn't know where to begin. Maybe that's where you are today. Maybe you've tried many times before. Maybe you've written goals you'll never read again. Maybe you've started and stopped more times than you can count. If that's true, let me tell you something I wish someone had told me years ago. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need perfect timing. You don't need perfect motivation. You only need the courage to take one honest step. One page. One conversation. One workout. One healthier meal. One decision to try again. Those moments seem too small to matter. But life has a strange way of rewarding small actions that are repeated with patience. Think about a river. A river doesn't carve through rock because it's the strongest force in the world. It carves through rock because it keeps flowing, day after day, year after year, without giving up. Your habits work the same way. They slowly shape your character. They slowly shape your future. Not through intensity, through persistence. There were days when I still doubted myself. On those days, I stopped looking at how far I still had to. Instead, I looked at how far I had already come. I remembered the person who couldn't stay consistent for a week. The person who constantly broke promises. The person who waited for motivation. That person wasn't gone. He had simply grown. Growth doesn't erase your past. It reminds you that your future doesn't have to repeat it. That's why I started celebrating small victories. Not because they were impressive, but because they were evidence that I was becoming someone different. One completed task. One difficult conversation handled calmly. One evening spent learning instead of scrolling. One promise kept. Those victories became proof that change was happening. And proof creates confidence. Confidence creates action. Action creates progress. Progress creates hope. Hope gives you another reason to continue tomorrow. Eventually, I stopped asking whether tiny improvements worked. I was living the answer. The biggest lesson wasn't that small habits could change my schedule. It was that small habits could change my identity. Without realizing it, I had become someone who valued consistency over perfection. Someone who believed that today's effort mattered, even if today's results were invisible. Someone who understood that success isn't owned by the most talented people. It's often earned by the people who simply refuse to stop. So, if you're listening to this right now, don't worry about becoming a completely different person by next week. Don't compare yourself with people who have been building their lives for years. Compare yourself with who you were yesterday. Ask yourself one question before you go to sleep tonight. What is one small thing I can do better tomorrow? Not 10 things. Not 50. Just one. Wake up tomorrow and do it. When tomorrow becomes today again, ask the same question. Repeat it. Some days you'll move faster. Some days you'll move slower. Both are still progress. Months from now, you'll notice subtle changes. You'll think more clearly. You'll react more calmly. You'll trust yourself more. Other people may notice, or they may not. Either way, you'll know something has changed. Because you'll feel it every time you keep another promise. You'll feel it every time you choose progress over excuses. You'll feel it every time you continue after a difficult day. One day you'll look back at this season of your life and realize that the biggest turning point wasn't a lucky opportunity. It wasn't one perfect decision. It wasn't one incredible breakthrough. It was the quiet choice you made each day to become just a little better than the day before. And those tiny improvements, repeated over and over again, became the bridge between the life you once imagined and the life you finally began to live. Part 4. The life you build one day at a time. There came a moment when I stopped asking myself one question. When will my life finally change? For years, that question controlled me. Every time I felt stuck, I wondered when everything would finally fall into place. When would I become confident? When would I become successful? When would I finally feel like I had made it? Then one morning, while doing the same simple routine I had repeated for months, I realized something. Maybe life isn't waiting to change one day. Maybe it's already changing every single day. The difference is that we rarely notice it while it's happening. Think about a child growing taller. If you see that child every day, you hardly notice the difference. But if you see them again after a year, the change is impossible to ignore. Growth works the same way. It happens quietly. That's why so many people quit too early. They expect dramatic proof after only a few days. When they don't see it, they assume nothing is happening. But some of the most important progress happens beneath the surface. Just because you can't see change doesn't mean change isn't taking place. That realization changed the way I looked at every ordinary day. I stopped treating today as something to get through. Instead, I started treating today as another opportunity to become the person I wanted to be. I discovered that success isn't built during rare moments of inspiration. It's built during ordinary mornings, ordinary afternoons, ordinary evenings. It's built while making breakfast instead of skipping it. It's built while choosing to read instead of endlessly scrolling. It's built while taking a walk instead of making another excuse. No single moment seemed important. But together, those moments slowly built a completely different life. One afternoon, I found an old notebook filled with goals I had written years earlier. Some of them made me smile. Some reminded me of how impatient I used to be. Back then, I wanted everything immediately. I measured progress by days. Now I measured progress by seasons. Instead of asking, "Did I succeed today?" I asked, "Am I moving in the right direction?" That single question removed so much pressure. Life stopped feeling like a race. It became a journey. I also learned something unexpected. The person you become is shaped not only by what you do, but by what you repeat. If you repeat excuses, excuses become part of your identity. If you repeat courage, courage slowly becomes natural. If you repeat kindness, kindness becomes your character. Every repeated action leaves a mark. That's why daily choices matter more than occasional bursts of motivation. There were still days when I failed. Days when I skipped my routine. Days when I felt discouraged. But instead of saying, "I've ruined everything," I learned to say, "I'll continue tomorrow." That simple sentence saved me countless times. Because perfection keeps people stuck. Progress keeps people moving. As months turned into years, I noticed something beautiful. I wasn't chasing success anymore. I was becoming someone capable of creating it. That was a much bigger victory. Money can disappear. Opportunities can come and go. But the habits, discipline, and character you build stay with you. No one can take those away. Looking back, I realized that my greatest achievement wasn't reaching a goal. It was becoming someone who no longer needed constant motivation to keep going. I had learned to trust the process. And maybe that's the lesson I wish I could give my younger self. Don't rush. Don't compare. Don't give up because today feels ordinary. Ordinary days are where extraordinary lives are built. So wherever you are right now, remember this. You don't have to change your entire future this week. You only have to win today. Make one better choice. Keep one promise. Learn one lesson. Show one act of kindness. Take one step forward. Then wake up tomorrow and do it again. One day you'll look back and realize that the life you once dreamed about wasn't built by one big moment. It was built by thousands of small moments when you quietly chose to keep going. And those choices, repeated over time, became the story of the person you were always capable of becoming. Final part. The life you build starts today. Looking back at my journey, I realized something important. The person I wanted to become was never created by one perfect day. It wasn't created by one opportunity. It wasn't created by one moment of motivation. It was created by thousands of small choices that nobody noticed. The early mornings when I chose to keep going. The difficult days when I chose not to quit. The moments when I had every reason to make excuses. But I decided to take one small step forward. Those moments looked ordinary, but they were building something extraordinary. For a long time, I thought success was about reaching a destination. I thought happiness would come when I achieved my goals, when I became more successful, when I became more confident, when I finally became the person I imagined. But I learned something along the way. The journey itself is where the transformation happens. The person you become while chasing your dreams is the greatest reward. Because goals can be achieved and lost. Money can come and go. Opportunities can appear and disappear. But the discipline, confidence, patience, and character you build will stay with you forever. That is something nobody can take away. Maybe right now you are at the beginning of your journey. Maybe you feel stuck. Maybe you have tried many times before and failed. Maybe you are looking at your life and wondering if change is really possible. I want you to remember this. You don't need to fix everything today. You don't need to have the perfect plan. You don't need to know every step of the journey. You only need to take the next step. One small improvement. One better decision. One promise you keep to yourself. That's how change begins. A small action, repeated consistently, becomes a powerful force. A small habit becomes a lifestyle. A lifestyle becomes an identity. And an identity becomes your future. Never underestimate what you can build with patience. A strong body is built through small choices. A successful career is built through small efforts. A better mind is built through small lessons. A meaningful life is built through small moments. The problem is that many people quit because they cannot see the results immediately. They plant a seed today and expect a tree tomorrow. But growth takes time. The seed doesn't become a tree overnight. It needs water. It needs sunlight. It needs patience. Your goals are the same. Keep showing up. Keep learning. Keep improving. Even when progress feels slow. Especially when progress feels slow. Because the days when you feel like giving up are often the days that build the strongest version of you. Remember, you don't need to be the best today. You only need to be better than yesterday. Don't compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. Everyone has a different journey. Everyone has different challenges. Everyone has a different starting point. The only competition that truly matters is becoming better than the person you were before. So take a moment and think about the person you want to become. What would that person do today? Would they give up? Would they make excuses? Or would they take one small step forward? Your future self is watching the choices you make today. Every action is a message. Every habit is a vote for the person you are becoming. So choose wisely. Choose growth. Choose discipline. Choose patience. Choose to believe that small actions can create a big future. Because they can. Your life can change. Not because of one magical moment, but because you decided to keep improving, even when the progress was invisible. One day, you will look back and realize something beautiful. The person you became was created by every small decision you made when nobody was watching. The life you wanted was built quietly. One day at a time. One habit at a time. One choice at a time. So start today. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Today. Take one small action that your future self will thank you for. And remember, the journey of becoming better never truly ends. There is always another lesson to learn, another skill to develop, another level to reach. Keep growing, keep believing, keep moving forward. If this message inspired you, subscribe to the channel for more stories about mindset, personal growth, and becoming the best version of yourself. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that small steps can create a big change. And remember, your future is not created someday. It is created by what you choose to do today.